Hello. It is often said that you should write short comics. And I've said this. I said this in my last video that I wished my first comic was a shorter comic, and I have often talked about the need to write short comics in order to learn how to make scenes, learn how to fully structure things out, and also to just avoid burnout and everything involved in that. And I realize, especially after reading some comments from my last video, I realized that some of you don't know what I'm saying when I say short comic, and there's a good reason that you don't, because I kind of oscillate between two very different concepts when I talk about short comics. Okay, so first things first. When I say short comic, I think a lot of people actually think I mean something that is under 20 pages, and sometimes that is what I am talking about. Sometimes I am talking about the need to create a comic with 20 pages. Other times, when I say short comic, you need to write a short comic, a shorter comic, usually I guess is how I would phrase it. I'm talking about something that's around the page range of 250. Upwards to 500 even, honestly, sometimes, given the lengths of comics that I write. But yeah, when I say either of these things, they mean different things contextually. And this has been like an issue on my part, is not kind of differentiating these well enough. So when I'm talking about writing a short, I am talking about writing 20 pages. And when I say that you should do this, I think it is a skills-based thing. Writing short comics, the same way as you would write short stories, it gives you an opportunity to explore different ideas, to practice character design, to practice panel layouts, new styles, to practice all sorts of different things. I find that short comics, comic shorts, allow you to really create just something new very quickly. For me, it's a way to avoid burnout. It's something to do that is enjoyable. It's something that I do for like anthology projects, and it teaches a lot about scene structure. I think that learning to write short comics will teach you a way of making your scenes more impactful, to layer your stories better, to work within constraints, and also the succinctness of a short comic is just very good at teaching you like to be more impactful, more economic with your writing. And I really recommend that you work on short comics for this reason specifically. They give you a lot of opportunity to play around, get quick criticism, and really, like, if you do a lot of shorts, you can level up all sorts of your writing and art skills very quickly, so that when you want to tackle a larger comic, it is a lot easier. And that's why I recommend doing shorts. And that is what shorts can do for you, and that is what I am talking about sometimes when I talk about short comics. The other time I am talking about short comics, it has to do with your main comic, your bread and butter. A lot of people create a comic that is way too long. You add way too much plot, way too many characters, just too much, to the point where like even a really succinct writer, even someone who's really like keyed in on all of those skills that you learn honestly from shorts and other practice writing, even people who are really keyed in are going to have a difficulty completing the amount of pages that is needed for like the type of story that you are building up. So you have to be very careful about just how your story builds in scope and how each layer you add makes your story bigger. So when I talk about making a shorter comic, making short comics, I think shorter is typically how I would refer to it. I'm talking about taking an idea that you have for a main comic, a web comic, something that's going to update pretty frequently, something that you want to see to the end to just kind of get that dopamine hit of actually finishing something. I would say to ballpark it around like 250 pages. And with 250 pages, you can do maybe like 4 characters, a handful of locations, and 1 major plot. You're not going to get a lot of side plots. You're not going to get a huge epic adventure. You really want to center it around like 2 main characters at most, and then supportive side characters on the side. For me, the one comic that I did this with was Pretty Mouth. Pretty Mouth, I really focused on making a short comic, and I made it black and white, which is another useful thing that you can do to make a short comic, to see things to the end. 250 pages is still a lot of pages, okay? Like, I'm not underselling 250 pages, but it is enough to tell a pretty substantial story. It's enough to create a whole graphic novel, basically, and it is enough to kind of like teach you a lot of things that long form stories have to offer that you're not going to get from making a whole bunch of shorts. Like, both kind of have their costs and benefits to them, right? So for me, a lot of my comics nowadays go into the thousands of pages, okay? I am working on, what am I working on currently? I'm currently working on the Books of Avo, which is a unique one. I might get back to that. I'm working on The Scourge of Ninepoint, and I'm working on The Magpie. The Magpie is a pretty big comic. It was meant to be a lot smaller than it is, but it ended up ballooning in scope because basically I just wasn't great at writing it at the beginning, so it's missing a lot of the setup that I need to make it good. It just kind of ballooned in general. That said, it's not that huge. It's like 700 pages. I was expecting it to be about 500, so it's gotten bigger, but like not ridiculously so. Crossing my fingers on that one because I still haven't finished it. The writing, at least. I've been doing a bunch of rewrites. The other one is Scourge of Ninepoint, which is staying within the range that I want it to be. It is going to clock in at about 2,700 pages. Probably less than that. I'm aiming for about 2,000 on that one, which is a lot of pages, especially for what the Scourge of Ninepoint is, like this whole like painted style comic. And then yeah, those are the main 2 that I am working on. The Books of Avo is very different because it's more of a webtoon style with like 1 or 2 panels per page, so it has already surpassed any amount of like page count that like all my other comics have and will. It's probably going to be like 3,800 pages, but it's not as bad as it sounds because it is like singular panels. It's kind of like similar to Homestuck in that way, I guess, where it's a little more simplified. I'm not doing a ton of work on the backgrounds and stuff. It's an adaptation of a novel. It's basically kind of like this idea where I wanted to make an easy reader of my novel. So it's a weird hybrid thing that's leaning it into being a lot more pages long just by the nature of it. If you look at Avo, I have an audiobook playlist of it on YouTube. You can just like have it read to you, and that's like the cool hybrid thing I'm doing with it. That's why its page count is like crazy, because of the way that it is structured. But anyways, back to comics. I'm pretty good myself at figuring out how long comics are going to be these days. Even the Magpie, I could trim it down if I wanted to. I just don't want to after what happened with my first comic, where I kind of rushed the ending and just wanted it off my plate. I really want to just give Magpie a lot more space. I kind of work within a page count whenever I start writing a story. With the Scourge of Ninepoint, the whole point of it is I want 9 books of it, 9 volumes, because 9 and I aimed for about like 300 pages each maximum, and then I structure everything within it and cut as needed. And there's so much room that like it's kind of easy to manage that. But yeah, that's what I mean when I talk about length anyways. I don't think there's anything wrong with making very large stories. I wouldn't do it if I didn't love doing that myself. I have tons of stories that span very large amount of time, but like I've done short comics, I've done shorts, I've done shorter length main webcomic type comics. And if you were looking for kind of like a goal, I would say to do either like 250 pages of something that is non-genreific, non-epic, you know, like a romance, a simple fantasy quest, a horror comic. All of those will lend to a shorter comic story. If you want to make something bigger, I would try and make a story that fits within 500 pages, because 500 pages is still a doable amount of pages. It's still an amount that you won't necessarily burn out on. I think, especially if you're really invested in your comic, but anything beyond that is like burnout territory, and you just kind of need to be careful about it and okay with the fact that you might never finish it. And that is my advice. Thank you for listening. I will see you in the next one. If you're looking for some comic community, people to chat with, people to work with, we have a Discord linked down in the description. I'm trying to just get more people there because I want to do more fun Discord things, more comic community things. And yeah, other than that, liking the video always helps me out a ton. And share this video if you want, I guess. I don't know, YouTube stuff. Okay. All right. See you in the next one. Goodbye.